Hello, everybody. So, welcome back to part two of our series on Judaism, in which I get into the beliefs and structure. And again, these are broad based things because just like any religion, there's always different interpretations, there can be different groups. I'm just getting into some just kind of generalized, broad ideas that many of the people, or even most of the people in Judaism, will follow or believe in. So, the first here is to talk about the religious texts. And the main texts of Judaism is referred to as the Tanakh, which is made up of three key parts. The first part being the Torah. Now, I have here 2,500 plus years old. That is the written Torah. Okay, the ideas of the Torah go back further than that, but when it started to first be compiled, somewhere around 2,500 plus years ago. Once again, it is credited to Moses, and within it are five key books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And actually, once you take a quick picture over there on the right, traditionally, Torah will be kept as scrolls, and that goes back thousands of years. What is in the Torah? We have the beliefs on creation, the history of Judaism, much of which I talked about in the last video, the genealogy of the major rulers and leaders and significant figures, moral codes and laws, which we'll get into, and really the structure of how the religion is supposed to work. What you also have in this as well are the Nevi'im, which are the writings of various prophets that talk about the religion and the future as well, and the Ketuvim, which are also other writings that talk about rituals and codes and stuff like that. And so those are your kind of key texts. In addition to that, you have the Talmud. Now, the Talmud is a collection of rabbinic teachings that they kind of like, the purpose of them is to expand upon the laws of the Torah and to make them a bit more understandable. And this is really a compilation of well-known rabbis and other scholars that really studied the Torah many, many hundreds and thousands of years ago. And the influence is huge because really the job of much of the Talmud is to show the relevance of the Torah and the rest of the Tanakh and how it, relates to people today. Now, one of the main areas in which this religion is carried out is in a synagogue. And here you have a picture of, actually, this is the Great Synagogue of Jerusalem. So I thought I'd put a big one in there. They're not necessarily all that big. But a synagogue is so much more than just a place of worship. It really is a center of the community. It is a place where people gather outside of just the services. And it is really the vital part of the community. And that is why the other vital part of the community is the local head of the religion, if you will, which is a rabbi. And a rabbi is a really significant position because rabbis, not only are they a spiritual leader akin to, say, a priest, and they run services and things like that, the rabbi is also there to counsel people. The rabbi is expected to be in the community. They're expected to marry and have children and be part of the community that way. It is very difficult. You have to go to years of rabbinical school and basically the equivalent of like internships and stuff like that. But a rabbi is such a huge part of the local community in Judaism. And so, and this fosters that togetherness of people coming together at the synagogue, or sometimes called the temple, and with the rabbi as the person that really helps to organize these things. And that's why, there are many tight-knit communities, but the Jewish community does tend to be pretty tight-knit because of the way that the worship is carried out. Now, some core beliefs that we have. First and foremost is monotheism. I talked about in the last video, there is no getting around it. There is no escaping it. It is the key feature. But another big idea is the idea of free will. And this goes against a lot of other religions where the idea is everything is determined by the gods and you're just kind of here and along for the ride. And the idea of free will is so important in Judaism and so remarkable. And it's this idea that you indeed are responsible for your own actions, and you must accept the consequences of those actions. Okay, you are not forced to obey God. You obey God because you have made that choice. And when we look in the scripture, particularly in the Torah, when you look at people that things have not gone well for, they get punished, it's typically for them making the conscious decision to not obey God. And when you make that decision, that's when bad things can happen. Even with the first story of Adam and Eve, and we can talk more in class, but this free will piece is so crucial to understand. And the part of that is that, you have the opportunity to live your life. You have the opportunity to make what you will of your life. But if you don't follow the correct spiritual path, those are things that you're going to have to deal with. And once again, as I mentioned, the covenant with God, that you will obey and follow God and listen to the teachings of God, and God will take care of you. And again, as I said, this really wonderful and very unique at the time, this exchange, this relationship with God. And that's really, really important, which leads me to the idea of prayer. Prayer is a really important part of this religion, as many religions it is, prayer, meditation, depending on what you call it. And it is that developing that personal relationship with God, which is so, so crucial. Now, so what are some other beliefs? You do have the Ten Commandments here, and on the right, you can pause it and take a look. And really the idea of the Ten Commandments these are kind of the core things, if you will, that you need to follow. One of the big things about religions is they have moral codes, and how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to treat and interact with each other. And these commandments go along with many other things that are in there, because the concept here is that man has been created in the image of God. And if you were created in the image of God, that means that all men were created in the image of God, and they should be treated with dignity and respect. And also along with that you should be kind and merciful to others. Again, kind and merciful. That idea of being merciful, giving people the benefit of the doubt, giving people opportunities to, recover or make amends, and that's really important. A lot of that also would be aiding those who are less fortunate with you. So a lot of work in aiding the poor and helping the poor is a big part of this religion as well. Respecting the name of God, as we said, we simply refer to God as God, and we need to recognize that He is above us, and that whereas He is here to protect us, we need to respect His position. Also, the idea of really making the worship important, and that's where the Sabbath comes in. In Judaism, the Sabbath, which is a specific day in which you are supposed to take this one day out of the week and really dedicate that to God. Now, this is interpreted in a variety of different ways in Judaism, and I'll be talking about it. It goes to the point where, the really, really strictest view of the Sabbath, which starts at sundown on Friday and goes on sundown to Saturday on the days of the week. And the idea is that you do not engage with any electronics. You are in prayer. You go to temple. You stay at home and reflect and pray to God. Now, does everybody do it exactly that way? No. And as I said, there's different interpretations, but that's the concept of taking time out of your day, in some cases sacrificing this time to reflect and pray and be with God. You also have dietary restrictions, particularly in the Torah and other areas, and different people. This is known as kashrut, and some people know as kosher. And these are specific rules that say what you should and should not eat. Some examples of this are you can only eat fish with scales, so things like no shellfish or octopus or something like that. Only have animals that eat cud or have split hooves, so like, deer and cattle and stuff, that's fine, but no pigs because they are seen as unclean. It has rules for the way that animals are to be slaughtered and prepared. You're not supposed to have milk or dairy and meat together. Some people are really, really strict with this. Some people aren't. There are specific experts, rabbis and other experts, whose job it is, if you seek to do this, to make sure that not only that you process and eat the right foods, but that your kitchen and kitchen utensils and everything like that has to be very specific. Certain plates and preparing dishes for this, and certain plates and preparing dishes for that. And we'll get into that a little bit more in class. But, when we look at all of these are all kind of these core beliefs and the things that people do, the Ten Commandments, the monotheism. But some of these things, like I said, depending on the type of person, it depends on what level that, if you will, that they are going to be worshiping, and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. There is also a belief in a Messiah, that at one point the world will come to an end, and that there will be a Messiah that will lead the people in this end of the world, and all people will be saved from it. According to Judaic belief, that Messiah has not come yet. And then the afterlife. So there is a general belief in the soul and the existence of the afterlife, but it is not particularly discussed much. Really, that there is an idea of heaven. There's not really a concept of hell. It's kind of either you're in heaven or you're not. There is this idea of the concept of the resurrection of souls, again, that goes back to the Messiah. But the focus is actually on life now. The focus is not on life later. It's that you need to live a good and spiritual life now, to make the most out of your life now, not at like some later date or anything like that. And it's really, really unique, again, with that view. And here I have an example. This is a Jewish cemetery. This is actually in Israel. The stones mark the idea that there are still people alive that remember them, and to show the remembrance when they visit the graves, they will put a small stone on the grave. It's really a wonderful, wonderful thing. But again, it's kind of this nebulous belief in the afterlife. It's there, but that's not really the focus of the religion. Now, we also have some key holidays that generally are celebrated in different types of ways. The top one is Yom Kippur. This is the holiest day of the year. This is referred to as the Day of Atonement, in which it's about atonement and reconciliation for sins and misdeeds. There's lots of prayer. There's service and fasting. As you see on the right there, that is a rabbi that is blowing a ceremonial horn. I believe he's actually standing in front of the Western Wall, which I'll talk about more in a moment. And this is to kind of celebrate and recognize that the people have done this and have atoned for their sins. It's a very, very solemn day. Again, lots of time in prayer. There's fasting involved as well during the day. Really, really important. After that, we have Rosh Hashanah, which is another big celebration because that's the celebration of the Jewish New Year according to the Jewish calendar. Really, really important big day as well. You also have Sukkot, or Sukkot. I think it's Sukkot. Somebody will correct me. I try my best. This is a 7-day festival to commemorate the years that the Jews spent in the desert trying to reach the promised land from Egypt. And there's a variety of rituals and stuff that go along with that. And then another familiar one, which is Hanukkah, which is the Festival of Lights, which actually commemorates a great military victory against the Seleucid Empire and the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem, which was, again, really, really important. Are there more holidays? There's absolutely many, many more holidays. I just kind of pick a couple of the big ones to go with. And then finally, we have holy sites. And holy sites are really important in many, many different religions because these holy sites are a place where you can get much closer in some cases to the founding of the religion. And it's crucial. And the number one spot of Judaism is the Temple Mount. And this is a place in central Jerusalem where God's presence had been manifested. Here you have the presence of the foundation stone where the world was created, a variety of different things that occur in the Torah, God talking to Abraham and stuff like that, all occurred here. Now, there is currently a mosque there, which is not Jewish. This is Muslim, and we will talk about that, but this area is the most sacred. Now, second to that is going to be this area right over here and that is the Western Wall. As we get a little bit closer, the Western Wall is what is left of the Second Temple, which was built by Herod. So imagine how massive this is. If this part right here is just one part, it's one part of this massive temple complex. It's also very important because the wall itself, as the temple, was connected to the Temple Mount. And again, just to give you an idea of just how large and massive this thing is, you can see how big the stones are, especially the foundation stones. There are specific places that you can and can't go here. There's typically places for men and women, and prayers and different things that you say here. It's a really, really important place to go, and so significant in Judaism. And the final place that we have is the tomb of Rachel. Rachel's tomb is the burial place of the matriarch Rachel, who is the wife of Jacob. In many ways, she's kind of seen the mother of the Hebrew people, and that they pray for her for protection to their children and some other things as well. And it's this little tiny spot. It was said that she actually died when Jacob and the Hebrews were traveling from one place to another place, and the belief was that they needed to bury her immediately, and this is where they buried her. So hopefully, guys, this gives you just a general idea of some of the important texts and places and beliefs in Judaism. We'll obviously get a lot more done in class, and thanks again, and I'll see you guys soon.